What's up guys, today I'm going to be going over builds for World's First Deepstone Crypt, which is the Beyond Light raid coming out on the 21st. In this video will be showing off several really good builds that will be very useful in World's First. Also there'll be stuff added in Beyond Light that might be used in the raid, including the stasis subclasses, so I might be making an updated video of this like the day before the raid with whatever that entails. But these builds I'm going to be showing off in this video will be extremely good for World's First, and for the people that watch my videos that haven't been following me for a very long time, you might just know me as the guy that makes builds and DPS videos in Destiny, but I have been a part of Redeem since 2015, and I have gotten 4 World's First raids with them. The first one being Wrath of the Machine normal mode with teammates such as Modern Tryhard, Flesh Crunch. Then you might know this guy called Tifu. He was part of the team back then. Then in Destiny 2 we had some new teammates come into the team. You might know them, you know, Glad, Switzical, then also Indica. And with that team we got World's First Prestige Leviathan, then World's First Fire Stars, then finally World's First Last Wish. And out of all those 4 different World's First I've been part of, the meta has been completely different almost every single time. From double primaries to, you know, Whisper of the Worm and Last Wish to Destiny 1, the stuff I've used in different Worlds First has been all over the place, right? But this is going to be the first raid ever that we have like real true builds. So that's going to be what this video will be about, and showing off some really cool builds that we can take advantage of for Worlds First. So let's go ahead and begin. The first thing I want to say is that pretty much all these builds will be on Will of Radiance with Phoenix Protocol. Right now, Phoenix Protocol does not have a mod slot on it, but remember in Beyond Light, all exotics are getting that mod socket. So we'll be taking advantage of 5 mods for all these different builds because you'll be able to use 5 mods in Beyond Light. So the first build is going to be all about creating Warmind cells. So we're going to be using Wither Horde, then Ikelos SMG, or the Seraph SMG, whichever one you prefer. Then finally we're going to be using the Seraph LMG also. So 3 different ways to create Warmind cells. Obviously you have the Ikelos SMG for like the red bar ads, pretty straightforward, creates Warmind cells. Then you also have the LMG for like the majors and ultras, which will create Warmind cells pretty easily too. Then finally you can also create Warmind cells with Wither Horde by shooting the Wither Horde towards the ground or enemy, then swapping to either your Ikelos SMG or your LMG. If you hold those weapons out, the Wither Horde kills will also count for Warmind cells. Now looking at the mods on this build, obviously we're going to start off with Global Reach. That way the explosions of Warmind cells and also the effects of different perks have a greater distance and effect. And the first mod that we'll be using to take advantage of Global Reach will be Cellular Suppression. Damaging a Warmind cell creates a burst of suppressing void energy. Additionally, you deal less damage to Warmind cells. So the point of these 2 mods is once you create a Warmind cell, you're pretty much going to leave it on the ground and just tap it here and there, which will do this huge burst of suppressing energy, which will blind enemies and make them not be able to attack you. And you can just leave the Warmind cell there and just tap it every few seconds and continually suppress everything nearby. So the point of this build is to leave the Warmind cells, so we're going to be using Warmind's Longevity, which will allow the Warmind cells to last longer. Then on top of that, we're going to be using Rage of the Warmind, which will add additional solar damage to the explosions. And the point of this is the regular explosion is only kinetic damage. With this, it turns into solar damage, which means it will break shields. And in this slot, you could also use Power Rasputin, which will increase the damage to enemies near Warmind cells, so either or will work really well. Then the final mod will also be Warmind's Protection, which means we'll take less damage from enemies near Warmind cells. So the point of this is you create a cell and you just leave it on the ground, then all the enemies glowing orange, you'll take less damage from them. Then if you have Power Rasputin, you will also do more damage to them. Then every time you tap the Warmind cell itself, it will suppress everything nearby. The next build will be kind of like a middle ground of making Warmind cells and also having just a good all-around build. So this we're going to be starting off with any primary of choice. Mine will be the Cold Denial because it's a pulse rifle and I am a huge fan of pulse rifles in World's First. And mine has high cal, so it should be able to stagger things pretty well. Then we're going to be using Martyr's Retribution, which is going to be pretty important. I recommend one with auto-loading holster if possible. Then our heavy slot will be either Xenophage or 1K. In this video, I'm showing off Xenophage, and this will be pretty much our good, solid all-around DPS option. Then we also have our Martyr's Retribution, which will be insanely good for ad clear, both red bars and majors. Starting off with the mods, once again, Global Reach to increase the radius of the explosion and also the effects. Then this time we're going to be using Wrath of Rasputin, which will make solar splash damage final blows have a chance to create Warmind cells. So that means both our Martyr's Retribution can create Warmind cells just like a Ikelos or Seraph weapon. Then also our Xenophage or 1K, whichever one you're using, can also create Warmind cells. And unlike the previous build where they were leaving the Warmind cells, this build you're going to be shooting them right away for ad clear. So this person will be using the cells they create for the actual explosion itself to clear out ads and things like that. And finishing off the mods for this build, we're going to be using Warmind's Protection once again. Even though you're going to be destroying your own Warmind cells, your previous teammate will be leaving them everywhere. So even though they are not your Warmind cells, it will still work with them, and you'll be able to take less damage from all those different enemies around the map, where your previous teammate is just leaving the Warmind cells. And the next mod on this build will be Blast Radius. That way, every single time we get a double kill with Martyr's Retribution, we become Chargeable Light ×1. And with those stacks of Chargeable Light, we'll be using Protective Light, which means pretty much every time we become Red Bar, we'll gain a significant damage resistance against enemies. And the more stacks we have, the longer that protection will last. And this protection is extremely strong, as you see right here. When I get Warmind Cell on the ground with Warmind's Protection, and also become Red Bar with ×2 Chargeable Light, I pretty much just don't even take damage, like, at all. I'm getting slapped by like 6 thralls at once, and my bar is barely even moving. So this will get you out of a lot of sticky situations while you're 20 light under in World's First. And then the next build on this list will be with Truth Teller with Blinding Grenades. So once again, primary of choice, mine will be Cold Denial. Then most importantly, a Truth Teller with Blinding Grenades. And once again, I recommend auto-loading holster if possible, if you have one, because it just works the best. Then finally, we can use whatever DPS exotic we want. So for example, Xenophage or even Whisper the Worm, depending on what the boss is. One might be better than the other. And looking at the mods on this build, we're going to start off with Warmind's Protection. This build is not going to be about creating Warmind cells in any way, but like I mentioned, some of your other teammates will be creating Warmind cells and leave them around, and you'll still be able to take advantage of those cells with this mod. And the rest of the mods on this build will be all about getting Chargeable Light. So we have Swift Charge, which allows us to become Chargeable Light on rapid kills with pulse rifles. For example, we're using Cold Denial. Then we'll also be using Blast Radius. That way, every single time we get double kill with Truth Teller, we become Chargeable Light. And with those stacks of Chargeable Light, we're going to be using Protective Light like we were in the previous build, which will help us stay alive when we become Red Bar. And the final mod on this build will be Powerful Friends. And like I mentioned, this is all about getting Chargeable Light. And when you do that, you'll also get your nearby allies Chargeable Light also. So this will help everyone on the team become Chargeable Light. So the role of this person is just pretty much become Chargeable Light and also blind things as needed. And you might be thinking, well, if one of your teammates is doing the first build with the Solar Suppression, why do you need Blinding Grenades? Well, there might be situations where creating a Warmind Cell might be hard, or you might just not have one ready, and you might need to blind self or you'll die, and this person doesn't need to wait for a Warmind Cell, they can just do it whenever they need to. Now moving on to the next build will be about Izukis Burden. This one will be using the Seraph LMG, and in this build you'll pretty much be using this as your main ad-clear weapon, which is pretty good because it's an LMG and also creates Warmind cells, and that will leave you with Izukis Burden for your boss damage. And this thing doesn't have the best DPS anymore, but still has pretty good total damage output, so as long as you get all of your shots off in a boss fight, you'll still be doing a lot of damage overall. And the good thing about this is your boss damage will be from a special, which means you can use Special Finisher, and make sure you have full ammo for every single DPS phase. And now looking at the mods for this particular build, starting off with Global Reach like usual, then we'll also be using Rage of the Warmind. That way every single time we explode our Warmind cells, they will also break elemental shields. Once again, we also have Warmind's Protection, that way we take less damage from enemies near Warmind cells. Then we have Charge Harvester, which will allow us to become Chargeable Light on any kill or assist. And once again, Protective Light to stay alive in those crucial moments. And the last build for this video will be just a generic build. It doesn't matter what 3 weapons you're using, all these mods will work with whatever you want. So the first mod will be Warmind's Protection, because your teammates will be leaving Warmind cells all over the place. Then we also have Global Reach, that way the range and radius of that protection is much larger. And we also have Power of Rasputin to take advantage of those Warmind cells laying around, which will give us more damage to those enemies that are glowing orange. Then we have Reactive Pulse, which is one of my favorite perks in the entire game. Pretty much anytime enemies are near you and you take damage, it will just electrify everything nearby you and pretty much just kill all those like trash mobs that are just rushing you. And for that, we need to become Chargeable Light, which is where Charge Harvester will come into play. Any kill or assist will allow you to become Chargeable Light. And that is the final part of the final build for this video. So if you're going to use these builds for World's First, pretty much you'd want one person using the full-on Warmind Cell build. And their point is just to leave the cells around and let all the other teammates take advantage of that in whatever way they can. Then they also tap the Warmind cells here and there and suppress everything around the room. So having one person doing that will be greatly beneficial. You'll pretty much be able to blind everything in the entire room constantly. So that is obviously extremely good. Then you'll want the rest of your teammates using one of the other builds in this video. They all take advantage of Warmind cells in some way. Some of them will be better for boss fights, some will be better for like puzzle encounters. So just depending on what encounter you're doing, you might change between those. But the most important thing is to use whatever you're comfortable with. That's definitely something I recommend to anyone going for worlds first. It's extremely important to use whatever you're used to and not really go out of your comfort zone, because when you're playing 20 light under in an area that you don't even know, there's going to be all kinds of variables and new things to you, and the last thing you want is your build, your weapons, and things like that to be foreign to you. You want that stuff to be consistent and feel natural. That way the only like variables you're dealing with or like the new information in the raid and not what you're using, if that makes any sense. But overall, I'm definitely interested to see how these builds work in Worlds First, because this, like I said, is going to be pretty much the first Worlds First raid with actual builds. So it's going to be interesting to see how much these builds like carry us in Worlds First while being 20 light under. I think these builds will be greatly beneficial, and if you're not using something like this, I think your chances of finishing in the top few spots will be pretty much zero, because I think these builds will hard carry being 20 light under. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.